Right, I'm just going to open the meeting with a karakia, as we always do. E te atua kaharawa, homai ki a mātou tikaha, ki te whai atu ina huarahi tika, mo tēnei hui I tēnei rā, tihei Māori ora. To the great Creator, give us the strength to follow the correct pathway for our meeting today. Blessing be to life. Okay, now we have a couple of apologies. So we have an apology from board member Alana Mackay, who is in Wellington at the Community Boards Conference, and also one from Sue Milner, who is unwell this evening. Yes, can I have someone to move that? Andrew will, and Philip will second. Thank you. Right, disclosure of members' interests. Anything in the agenda tonight that is a conflict for anyone or a...
Not as much conflict, but we're going to keep out of the representation item, okay?
Yep, that is fair. You are most welcome to share your thoughts, but I understand that you don't want to, that's fine. Any? Yep. Okay, that's good. Andrew, all good. Elise, everything okay with the agenda tonight? Yep, great. Okay. Okay, now let's move through to our public forum. Just for those of you in the public forum, I always like to introduce the board so you know who's who. So we have online Elise Badger, who's the Deputy Chair, Cambridge Ward, then Andrew Myers is our Community Board Rural Representative, Brad Myers, Brad Ward, I don't know who Brad Myers is, I don't know who that is. Brad Ward is council staff and he sits on our board. Myself, Joe, we have Philip Coles, who is Cambridge Ward councillor, and Mike Montgomery, who is our Mangatautari Ward councillor. And then we have our governance staff here, Kirsty, who is on the strategy team, and some more governance council staff here. So nice to see you all. You're all welcome. We're going to start with Mike and Yana from NZTA, and they're going to come and speak to us about the Cambridge to Prairie roading project. Nice to see you both. Just push that purple button there and then one can hear you online.
Welcome. Hello, everyone. I'm Mike Wood, NZTA. I'm I guess a better way of saying RMA planner. I've been on the Cambridge to Pairere project, or C2P, or Road of National Significance, as it's now known, for the last, feels like about 4 years. So sometime. That's Yana.
And Yana Viryanova, I'm the project manager. So I'm looking after a portion of the work that we're planning to do at Mauna Roa Reserve.
So I don't have a fancy presentation, but I think you've been sent some documentation. Yep. So in essence, we're looking to, we need water for our project, need about 2,000 cubes a day. It's about 200 truckloads. For the project, the C2P project's probably six years construction. So there's a lot of water. It's critical. We need it for dust suppression in particular, but also for other parts of the project. We've struck a problem on the roundabout, the Pairere roundabout. At the time, we were looking to pipe water that project from the Awa. Our ecologist found the clam. So that's led to the biosecurity restrictions. Our mana whenua partners, they are most concerned about the spreading the clam, as are we. Project covers a number of catchments, not just the Waikato catchment. Parts of the stream flow to the Waitoa, Hauraki in the north, which, as far as I'm aware, they haven't found the clam. So we try to de-risk the project as much as possible. We looked at a number of methods to get water. And so we've arrived at is what's called a land filtration gallery. It's the idea to use Moana Roa Reserve. We're putting down 2 bores, one close to the river to monitor, just to test whether the soil under the reserve can act as a filtration for the larvae. And so the larvae are kind of present around 15 degrees, sort of springtime. That's when they've got a test because they're microscopic, very, very tiny. And the other bore is just for the hydrological pressure to test that we can produce enough water for our daily needs. We're going through a number of permits to set up on your reserve. Wish to thank your the guidance and assistance of your parks staff. They've been magnificent, and planning been really good. We presented to the finance committee yesterday for the license to occupy, which we were granted that. Was also going to get regional consents for the bores themselves. We've also got to apply to biosecurity. And then also LINZ, who administer a kind of an esplanade strip all around the Lake Karapiro. It's like a co-management agreement. So multiple agreements to do that. We're looking to test probably October, the earliest, a short testing period. If we're successful, we probably know the results in early 2025, March. If we're successful, fingers crossed, we'll move to apply for a water take consent. Our presence on the reserve would be probably up to 6 years. I know the license is for 8 years, just to cover that period now. We think we've tried to locate these bores in an area which will be out of the public eye as much as possible, discreet. So we'll work with your parks team to try and tuck it into a corner, because appreciate that reserve does get quite active use. So that's kind of in a summary. We're quite hopeful. Should say Mana are very supportive. They like the idea that we're trying to use sort of a non-chemical solution, I suppose. We have checked with them what sites along the Awa work. There's obviously sites of cultural significance they don't want us to go to. Moana Ra is acceptable from that perspective. So we feel we've done pretty good due diligence to date. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Right. I've sent your report through the community board members, so they are aware of all of this. So I'll open up to questions. I'll just start first. Has this system of filtering, sorry, I should say, the larvae, has that worked in other projects or in other places, or is this a little bit of Kiwi ingenuity doing it that way?
It hasn't been tested before because it's been found. Clam was found in the river. It's a first presence in New Zealand.
Right.
But we've done the research for internationally, and we also haven't found anyone taking water for the project and actually using the water well production well for the construction. We haven't seen that in other international research. That's why we're quite excited with this opportunity to trial that.
Yeah.
As we've met with MPI, they seem quietly optimistic of what they've seen with the methodology.
Yeah.
But it would be a kind of a first, at least for the river corridor. I'm sure there'll be other projects down the line. So if that is successful there, then maybe somewhere else.
It'd be great. It'd be great if it works and it's a good solution. Andrew?
Thanks, Mike and Yana. Mike, I did email you and I got your response. Thank you about that. I did ask Mike about the possibility of taking a surface take. It might be less invasive than drilling a hole. And your reply was good about the filtering of the sand using a bore. So I understand that. So and the regional council will check your takes, like 2,000 cubic meters a day is quite a lot of water. May have effect on neighbouring properties, and I'm sure the regional council will check all that out, won't they?
They'll will be beholden to what we've said in our application. We have done looked at the drawdown effects, so there's no bores within that kind of radius that you'd expect from a bore of that size. So we're pretty comfortable around that. Always mindful on the bigger project up in the hills, there are bores, we'll be doing cuts here, so we typically will have hydrologists involved to look at that.
Additional bores and specific cuts.
Oh, well, up in the main alignment, we've had to assess what bores are existing with farmers to make sure we're not dropping it so they don't have their water supply for their stock. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Elise, I see you with a question there, and then we'll come to Philip.
Thank you so much. Sorry, I'm just struggling to figure out how to virtually raise my hand. So I'm glad you saw that. Thank you for your presentation. I'm just interested to know a little bit more about the process of testing. So you put that well down in the ground, you draw water out of it, take it away, have a look under a microscope to look for the larvae. Is that right?
Yeah, we'll take a sample of water. Yes, that's correct.
And then over how long a period will you be taking samples for? Is it just like a one and done, or are you sampling over a period of time? What's the process there?
For the water sample, are you asking about larvae?
Yeah, testing for larvae. Yeah.
Don't answer your question. We'll be testing during, we'll take a few samples during the time we are drawing the water, because once we install a water production well, we will be pumping water over the 7 days, 24/7, just to ensure that we've reached the capacity of the well and it's producing water it can produce. And during that period, we will test water every day. We'll take samples every day.
For 7, sorry, was that for 7 days? Or just for 7 days?
Yeah, for 7 days. We'll be pumping water from the well.
And that's before if that comes clear, then you would look at commencing the project, but the testing phase is 7 days of continuous pumping.
Yes,
is that correct?
Yeah.
And then let's say it all went ahead, would there then be some strategies around that continued testing? Would that be something that continues for the duration of the project?
Yeah, that's
okay.
Yeah.
And then will you have systems in place that if suddenly those juvenile clams larvae do appear in the water and your project is up and running and you have an immediate need for water, do you have like a plan B if all of a sudden you need to stop using that well and that water source and move on to something else? Will you have strategies in place for that?
I think it would be a reasonable way to do it, yes.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I suppose the strategy would have to move us to an engaged commercial water tanker cartage, which is cost, but it's a really good point. Back to your earlier point, we probably could share some of the ecology methodology if that's of interest around the testing. That's not sensitive. No, so if that's helpful, happy to share that.
Yeah, I guess it's just having some confidence that if the project goes ahead, that you have a backup option if suddenly those little microscope larvae, we know they're pretty insidious, they've shown up and we don't know where they've come from and they could surprise you midway through the project. It'd be good to know that you had a backup plan if suddenly that water source was contaminated for you.
Sorry, there is NIWA. That's been the problem for us, that we've been operating in a bit of a research vacuum.
Right.
We had sought kind of guidance. NIWA have produced a report of late of various approaches to just destroying the larvae. And I think what then was most effective, if you're heating water up to about 70 degrees, you can kill them within 2 minutes. As you can appreciate, the volumes of water we're talking about, the level of heating kind of element.
Yeah.
But there are options according to that NIWA research.
Okay.
Based or through heat.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. No further questions. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank
Philip.
you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you and welcome tonight. So just relating to Andrew's question, you talked about a radius bore water without affecting?
Yeah.
What radius would you work in without affecting neighbouring bores and things like that approximately?
I can visualize the picture because it's in our application. I know it extends beyond the reserve in this case. So it's, I mean, I don't want to give you an answer that's not correct, but it's not kilometers. Although I know on the big cuts on our project, which is on our farm, the farm that the Crown purchased, if you appreciate the farm where the roundabouts is, the Crown's purchased
Oh,
all that
yes,
farm.
yes.
Biggest cuts, I think there's effects up to 2 kilometres.
Wow.
Those cuts are quite significant compared to this kind of location, but happy to give you a diagram or something. I just don't know the exact answer.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Right, any further questions from anyone? No, we'll be really interested to see and just watch how that project progresses. It'll be so awesome if that can work and it doesn't, hit any roadblocks, excuse the pun.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much for coming and giving us a little update. That would be great.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Right, we have Stephen Sholem now. I met Stephen today at my Rebus men's group talk that I did. And at the end of the talk, I said, if anyone would like to come to our meeting tonight, please come. And Stephen has come, and I'm really happy to see you. And thank you for coming. Oh, I didn't mean it to be, but if that's what gets people in the door, then that's what gets people in the door. Now, you have a question around alcohol. And now I have, hopefully, Zoe, Mika online. Now, normally we don't have staff answer questions to the public, but there she is. But considering this item is on our agenda later, I thought it would be appropriate that she's here to answer that. So hi, Mika, thank you for coming. And Stephen, hand it over to you. Now, just push that purple button. Perfect.
And in the interest of a declaration of interest, this was totally not arranged. It is totally serendipity, but it arose from a comment that I heard. So thank you, Madam Chairperson and members of the board. My name is Stephen Sholem. I'm a Leamington ratepayer and resident. This is my first submission ever to a board. I've got through life without doing that. So thank you for the opportunity to present. My question is to the Cambridge Community Board. In light of the recently announced change in policy by the Auckland City Council and the probable change by Christchurch City Council and possibly other local authorities, will the Cambridge Community Board strongly and urgently advocate a change in the Waipa District Council's local alcohol policy? By reviewing this policy, reference, as you may well know, number 15115803, dated 1 July 2016. But as I note on the 21 pages of this policy, there is no duration period mentioned, no expiry date, nor a review date. Perhaps, in my view, this is a policy that may need reviewing. In consideration of other local authorities reviewing and implementing changes, I would submit now would be a good time to undertake a review supported by widespread community consultation and implementation, if required, of desired restrictions. As widely known and available in media outlets, Auckland's new alcohol policy includes a 2-year freeze on new liquor licenses in some areas and stricter trading hours, meaning bottle stores and supermarkets across the region will not be able to sell alcohol after 9 p.m. In supporting this policy and principle, it was noted by Radio New Zealand in a discussion with Christchurch local authority members. One of the members quoted, and I provide you with this, police documents revealed alcoholic harm amounted for 7.8 billion. And the references given is https://www.rnz.co.nz/news national/518567 police commissioner, etc., where the harm is estimated at 7.8 billion compared to 1.8 billion for illegal drugs. Now, the background to this is, and important, I am a ratepayer, I'm a resident, I have no shares in any business that sells alcohol, I have no shares in any public company or other that sells in this. I do it as a concerned citizen, alerted by the fact that after 8 years of fights to the Supreme Court, the council in Auckland is now able to put out for consultation and implementation a policy that deals with certain restrictions. I believe that that step by Auckland City Council, fought through the courts, is a good opportunity to other local authorities, including our own, to consider and, if necessary, review the policy. Otherwise, the status quo may continue. Now, if there is a advocacy by this board, as I seek, because that is all my question is, to advocate for a review, I am happy to make more detailed submissions on matters that I think could be taken into account. So thank you for the permitted 5 minutes.
Thank you, Stephen. That was great. Any questions just on what he? I don't know.
Stephen, yes, thanks. Sorry, you're more knowledgeable about the subject than I am. Can you just summarise in 1 or 2 sentences what you're asking for?
Simply asking for the board, as an advocacy board, to call upon a review of a policy which is now over 8 years old. In my view, policies should always have a number of things. A start date, so we know when it takes legal effect from, and an end date. I don't believe that policies should not have 2 things, an end date or a review date. Now, I don't believe reviews should be every year because people jump up and down, but I do think that perhaps 5 to 8 years is sufficient. I couldn't find it in the time that I had to look for that in the policy as available. So
Right.
I'm just asking,
Yeah.
will you advocate for a change, or will you let the status quo remain?
No, it's a good question, and I'm going to hand over to Mika to see if she can answer that. I'm sorry you do have to turn around to see her. If you do ask her another question, you'll just have to use that microphone so she can hear you. Mika, thank you.
Well, thank you. Well, you're in luck because consultation is currently open on the review of the local alcohol policy. So it can be found on our website. And if you stay for a little bit longer, then I believe the community board's going to discuss it anyway. So you can hear what we've got to say. Yeah, the local alcohol policy does get, it doesn't have a legislated review date that it expires by, sorry. It is recommended to be reviewed every 6 years. We were also partly waiting to see what would happen with that Auckland case, because we were pretty lucky being one of the first councils out the gate to implement one of these policies, whereas other councils like Auckland got stuck in that legislative process. So it is quite beneficial to see what Auckland has gained from going through that hearings process. So now we can learn from them and incorporate that into our policy. Do you have any questions about that?
Well, I will then apologise for not being absolutely up to date with what was happening, because I don't think I had spotted in my general reading that there was a review in time. It just seemed to me that the time appeared right.
That's okay. That's totally fine. If you'd like to stay on, you can hear the full discussion, and then in your own time you can make your own submission, which is always a good thing to do. So, yep, we've got some of the submissions printed out if you wanted to do a paper copy, or you can do them online. But thank you very much for that.
If I could, through the chair, Mika, I think there is hard copies at the library too, isn't there? Yes. Yep. So Stephen, the library is open, and so if you did need another copy,
Yep.
there's some available there.
All right. Thank you very much. I'll look at that.
Thank you very much. Right. Jared, when you're ready, we'd love to hear from you. So Jared Milbank, she's coming to speak to us about Cambridge Connections. Nice to see you again.
Tēnā koutou.
Kia ora.
Tēnā koe. Ore nei, ore nei tūroa te kaunihera o Waipā. Ko tōku o hau koe, e he koe ana ahau, ia marama ki te kōrero ki ngā rangatira nei. Tēnā koutou. Greetings to you all. Thanks for letting me speak. As it was mentioned, I'm here to talk about Cambridge Connections. The review, the independent review for the project was just released last week, and also the council staff response to that. And there was a discussion yesterday at the Service Delivery Committee on both aspects of that. So I have a few things to say. My thoughts are a little bit jumbled because I haven't had a lot of time since then. But I thought it was worth coming and sharing a few things anyway. There's three things that I really wanted to talk to you about. I wanted to bring some thanks, some concerns about the next steps, and some thoughts on communication and consultation, which will become apparent from the other comments I'm making. So thanks to the community board as a whole. You really did open up this forum to members of the public around the Cambridge Connections, the third bridge, and let us speak, and then took our thoughts forward. I think that's been really instrumental in having an independent review run. Councillor Coles, for your tireless work on the project. And it became apparent yesterday also Councillor Montgomery, who'd gone away and done a significant amount of work, homework on the NZTA framework that the project was working on, and really raised an alarm in the council that the process didn't really mesh with what was supposed to be happening. As far as I can tell, the independent review really covered two parts and then a set of recommendations. The first part was about process, and it said that was largely run according to the NZTA guidelines, other than the fact that decisions were made in unclear ways, in secret and not communicated. And then the second part was about the communication engagement, which is also part of the NZTA framework. And that was found significantly lacking. There's sort of mention of the fact that homeowners weren't alerted until 2 weeks after the press came out, and a number of other factors. And again, they go on and have a list of a dozen or so recommendations, especially around the engagement part. And so I thought that was actually seemed like a really good review. I was encouraged by the things that are in there. However, you really wouldn't know that from the response from the council staff. Based on that release, it really only focuses on the part of the review that said things were run correctly, and then immediately goes into the project being picked up pretty much where it left off. And the major part of engagement is being with iwi, which is important, but there are some the other of us that also like to have a bit of a chat about things. So yesterday at the Service Delivery Committee, I was really heartened by the response from the mayor and the councillors. They recognised from the recommendations from the transport group, we're not really a sufficient of a reset. And I'd agree with that. The council staff appear to have laid the blame largely on the change in long-term plan timing being changed, being deferred for a year. But in the discussions yesterday, it became clear that the potential bridge locations were known for at least a year, all of last year, and probably 18 months. And somewhere in the group, a decision was made to keep the whole group in secrecy and not even allowed to talk to councillors. It sort of seemed that talking to homeowners would be contentious, so they simply wouldn't do it. And that's concerning. In fact, it seems that the delay for 18 months, it wasn't the long-term plan timing, it was the decisions that had been taken in the group. One thing that is a little concerning is that the press release that's gone out, that most of the people that I know will have read, and they won't have gone in more deeply into what are quite lengthy documents, is the council staff position and the council staff recommendations. It says that things largely went well and they're going to continue on in December pretty much where they left off. I'm hoping that that's something that might be reviewed. You don't normally get a follow-up press release from the councillor's position. I'm still surprised that the only reprimand for expenditure of north of $500,000 to get to the point that we're currently at, which is sort of starting over, is only to be told that the staff can't actually go back and appropriate another $170,000 from different sources, essentially trying to sidestep the decisions that were made by council and councillors in the enhanced annual plan to not invest more money into Cambridge Connections this round until wait till next year. But as far as I can tell, that's the only thing that I've been told not to do. The one thing that I would highlight that I heard repeatedly from the transport team yesterday was that consultation with public is expensive. And their recommendations are largely not to do it, I think, because of that expense. I wanted to reflect on some other projects and some lessons of sort of learned from other things on engagement and in communication. And specifically the Cambridge Pathway Project. We ended up talking with some other people at the Cycleway. And my concern here is a little bit that the council sort of tends to have an all or nothing approach to engagement. If something reaches a certain level of significance, they have to consult with everyone. But if it doesn't, they don't consult with anyone. It would be sort of like, I've got 5 neighbours. If I was building a fence and affected one, I could choose not to consult with them because I've got 5 and that's not really significant. But maybe if I had affected 2 neighbours, I'd have to consult with all of them because it was reached a certain level of significance. I think that's sort of a certain problem. And the legislation around this does sort of indicate that you should be identifying the groups that are more affected than the average ratepayer. You know, people are not just paying a little bit more money, that's sort of covered by that huge significance, but you know, there are cases when you're going to significantly affect some homeowners, some residents, and they should be perhaps consulted more concisely. And that might be something where you can spend a little bit less money. As a homeowner in the area of the third bridge, I would have expected that we would have been advanced a little bit. And indeed, the independent review did say that homeowners should have been consulted earlier. So the couple of things around the Cambridge Pathway that I've become aware of in discussions is that there's a new part of the cycleway that's going to go north of Hamilton Road into Grey Street, and that's going to be turning that in. Was currently a one-way street out of there into a complete cul-de-sac, and it sounds like the council actually went around the individual homes and spoke to all the people there and sort of cleared it, and that sounds like a really good thing. On the other hand, I've spoken just with the things that have been happening to some people that own homes on Alpha Street that had their berms dug up over quite an extended period of time. And then a cycleway actually put through the berms. And as far as they can recall, they didn't actually get any individual notification, no discussion or anything. I actually think there is a value to the consultation. So the third part of the cycleway is that I just downloaded the Antenno app. It was great, and I got an alert about consultation on the pathway. And I turned up on a video call, and I think there was about 8 of us that turned up, not at the council staff, and a few of us put things in. And I think we had an effect, because if you look at version 1 of the plans and version 3 or final, whatever the last one is, there were significant changes, and some of those have been really, really good. We actually got rid of some bumps. The initial plan was to put a speed bump in and out of all the intersections down Bryce Street. And I did a little bit of research, and it turns out that's not an NZTA approved one. The NZTA approved one is a table intersection, so just 1 bump up and 1 bump down, still a bump, but we lost 4 bumps at each of the intersections by doing that. So that was a good outcome. We talked about the fact that Bryce Street's getting actually quite busy. It was really hard to cross, especially when they did put the speed bumps in with the previous round. So we've got pedestrian crossings. That's great. I cross that road at least twice a day, often more than that. And I can get across, even at rush hour. I'm really happy about that. We asked for the trees to be saved along Bryce Street. The pathway sort of waves around them, and there's permeable membranes there. I think they've done quite a good job of trying to do that. It feels really a human space. To walk down there, it's quite pleasant. I enjoy walking down there. And it feels much better to have that sort of winding path than it does to have like a dead straight one along Hamilton Road. It makes it feel a very human village scale place. So I think we accomplished some good things. I really wish there'd been a second round of consultation, because I think the trade-off between parking and trees might have gone a different way. And we missed having some conversations about the footpath on Alpha Street on the north side actually not connecting up and not getting decent pedestrian crossings able to connect to the south side there. It's quite hard to walk from our place down to the Gaslight Theatre, for example. So we couldn't, with that consultation, we couldn't have changed where the cycleway was going to go, but we really improved the things about it. The amenity is significantly better in the final plan than it was in the one that first came out. And I think that's through consultation. So my lessons are that I don't think the council is consistent enough. They have a little message often in projects on significance and engagement. And I've actually tried to get some official information or some other people around that for the Cambridge Connections project. In that case, we couldn't get any more information. The only thing is this little paragraph that said, our staff considered this and we decided that and actually they decided it was significant. But they don't sort of, for example, break down the ratepayers or residents who will be more affected by things than the average. In that section, there's usually a little more information. I think there's an area there where the community board can sort of check those pieces out. You're looking at more of the projects coming through and sort of say, hey, this isn't really identifying who's going to be more affected. And build bigger opportunities. So, and I know that it sort of feels like that communication engagement policy isn't being consistently applied based on our experience. I think there might be something, I believe it gets reviewed every long-term plan, so I suspect that's coming up. It's hard for ratepayers to have a long time frame on things. I think the community board again could potentially weigh in on a review on that and what they've seen on communication engagement on the projects you've been involved in. So, yep, sorry, a little bit of a jumble of some thoughts, but I think some key things have come out of the review. So thank you.
No, that was great. Not jumbled at all, Jared. Thank you for that. Obviously, you were at the meeting yesterday. Were you encouraged by some of those conversations around what the public engagement will be like going forward and how, the mayor especially and all the councillors and the staff really were so keen that the community be brought along in such a more involved way, not just the community board, but the community themselves. And, we are really hopeful that will happen in the second time round.
Absolutely. As I said, I was quite heartened by the councillor's response. I think it was left very much up in the air or on the table, as it were. So there's certainly things we do need to be vigilant and keep watch of what's happening. The initial plan was to slip the bridge into the last long-term plan and sort of have it hidden amongst some other things. There's another long-term plan change coming up next year, so I think we're going to watch for that as well.
Right. Okay. Any questions for Jared or comments? Elise, anything from you online? Yes.
Yes, thank you, Jared. Thank you for a really comprehensive reflection on what's been a really interesting time for the community and for having your input. And I just want to applaud your ability to actually go searching for those opportunities and then taking them to actually engage with that consultation process, because it's really wonderful to see the outcome of that when council and community can mesh and produce something better than what they started with. So just thank you for sharing that story of how your input has been received and has actually helped to shape the town that you live in. And I think when we as people who live and breathe in our communities can actually see our impact on our town, that's really, it helps to build our investment in the future of our town. So I just wanted to say well done for engaging with the community when the opportunity presents itself and sharing that in your neighbourhood as well. So bye-bye.
Thank you for that. It's a bit tiring, actually. There's quite a lot to engage with.
Oh, you're doing a good job. Andrew?
What are the key dates and timelines going forwards for this project? Summarise, please.
To be honest, there aren't any, because we gave a pretty clear instruction to staff that we did not think that the reset that had been proposed was a significant enough reset. So the entire report was left lying on the table with a recommendation to go and do more work. There's an expectation that'll come back to a workshop type scenario, council workshop. I don't know when that'll be happening. We deliberately slowed it down. We want to do it right, okay? So yeah, I can't be more precise than that at this stage. I don't think anyone probably could.
Yeah, I think I could verify that too. There was a proposal date of December to get it all signed off by, but we said it needs to slow right down, workshops, engagement, and we can't rush this at all. So it'll be after next. Well, yeah, there wasn't a date, so.
Yeah, and just make a point there that we're not slowing it down for the sake of slowing it down. We're slowing it down for the sake of getting it right. Okay.
Yeah.
And could I just say, Jared, since the day I met you, which was the day of our community meeting, I think we had a pre-meet. You've been really constructive in this space, and good on you. Well done. It's been it's really good listening to you, and you have helped this Cambridge Community Board become really focused on this kind of stuff. You said quite a lot just now, but one of the messages I took was that this community board has got a real role in fostering and facilitating this kind of engagement going forward. And so, yeah, I completely endorse that. It's a really great role for the community board to act as that representative body and to not only facilitate it, but sort of demand it, that there's adequate engagement.
There's one little caveat I'd actually add to that, which I should have sort of mentioned, which is if the council believes they understand the public opinion sufficiently, they don't have to consult. So if the community board goes out and consults and feeds that back to council, the council can then use it to not actually run their own consultation, potentially. And the council has funding for consultation, the community board probably doesn't. So there's probably something to be cautious about around what you actually go and do your own canvassing around.
That's a fair point. Elise?
Jared, I'll just reassure you that we're not resourced to run community official consultation. So I hear your point about the risk of that, but I don't imagine that to be a real threat. We always want to work in partnership with the resources that council have in order to get the best outcome for the community. But I hear your point, but I think we're probably not going to be a threat at this stage.
Yes, that's great. Thank you very much, Jared. Yeah, and we look forward to seeing you again as this process continues, and we hope we will. Great. Thank you so much. Right, I think that is everyone in our public forum, which is great. So we'll move on to the rest of our meeting. Right, so let's just confirm the minutes of our previous meeting that was on the 19th of June as circulated with the agenda as true and as a true and correct record of proceedings. I'm happy to move that. Just 1 second. Thank you, Andrew. Right, all in favour? Right, and we'll go to our long-term plan process. So, Melissa, welcome. Nice to see you again. Thank you very much for coming and updating us and keeping us in this process with you. It's really good to be part of it.
Thank you. Sorry. So yes, just an update on where things are at with the long-term plan. So I guess probably should start with what we've been focusing on lately, and that has really been kicking start on the financial side of the long-term plan now that a lot of the foundational pieces have been set. So what this basically means is that we're starting to look at our finance strategy and the budgeting and obviously the projects that form part of that as well. We are in the very, very early stages of starting to consider our fees and charges as well. And in terms of the program, you'll see that coming up in the next few workshops. Since the last report to the community board, there has been 2 council workshops. The first of which covered quite a few things. It was a big day, but we provided a picture of the growth picture. So what kind of growth is happening in the district and how we're planning for that, noting that quite a significant portion of council's debt is growth related. So we really did want to focus in on that. We provided quite a bit of information on our renewals program. So we have, I guess, underfunded our renewals program in the past. And so we really wanted to, again, put the focus on that and see what we can do moving forward. And we wanted to have that discussion with our elected members. We also covered off levels of service through the workshop, and these have largely stayed the same. We also covered off our forecasting assumptions, and I know that that's a bit of a jargony term, but it's basically the assumptions that we make on the basis of our planning. So what are we assuming will happen over the life of the long-term plan or the next 9 years? And then our strategic approach to this long-term plan, so it really flows on from our strategic framework. The second workshop was publicly excluded, but noting that that workshop was on the 5th of August. The content of that workshop will be covered off on the 27th of August, which is next week. And that was on the grounds of free and frank discussion to carry on their business without prejudice or disadvantage negotiations pursuant to sections of the Act, which are detailed in the report. Since writing this report, I'd just like to point out that the Strategic Planning and Policy Committee meeting on the 3rd of September, as it's detailed, and the workshop have been cancelled. So those items will be deferred to further on in the program. You'll also know on the 10th of September, we are looking to have a workshop on significant projects. And I just wanted to highlight that because that's obviously where we start to discuss some of the crunchy topics. So I just thought that one might be of particular interest to the community board. Happy to take questions.
Yes, it will be of interest to the community board for sure, and we'll be there, and we'll be inputting all of our project ideas and considerations. So thank you very much for the opportunity to do that. Questions for Melissa on her report? Andrew? No? Elise, anything from you? No? It's all very straightforward. Obviously, some of these dates and things can change, eh?
We have tried to, it's our planning at a point in time. They are subject to change.
Okay. Mike?
I've got one I should know the answer to, and it's straight from Jared's previous challenge about the significance and engagement policy. Where have we got to on that at the moment?
Good question. So through this long-term plan, we have decided, or council have decided, not to do a thorough review of the significance and engagement policy. So through the 24-34 long-term plan, we did I guess, kind of an assessment to see if it would warrant a review. But the decision was made to defer it on the basis of waiting to see what happens with the local water done well program, because that would have quite an impact on the policy. But we are signalling that we'll do a thorough review as part of the 2027 LTP.
Okay, any further questions from anyone? I think that's great, Melissa. That's a good overview. Thank you. Wonderful. Right. Right, so we just need to move that we receive Melissa's report. Again, I'm happy to move that.
I'll second that.
Oh, thank you. We'll go with Philip. He was in just a whisker early. Thank you. All in favour? Great. Okay, that's carried. Right, let's move on to our local alcohol policy, and we'll have Mika back online. There she is. Hi again. And I'll hand over to you, Mika. Thank you.
Good, thank you.
Sorry, Mika,
Apologies.
can I just jump in for a minute?
Please.
We're a decision maker on this one as well. I need
Okay.
to say so at the beginning.
Yep, that's fine.
We won't be part of the decision about whether to.
Okay, that's okay.
That's all right.
Okay. Are you happy to be part of the discussion? Oh, yeah. Yeah, you can only have, I think, a few on at a time. Are you happy to remain in the discussions about the policy, or you want to sit it out? Okay. Yep, that's fine. All good. All right. Mika, sorry, back to you. Thank you.
Cool, thanks. Yes, so the formal consultation has opened on 3 alcohol-related topics. So the local alcohol policy, the alcohol control bylaw, and the alcohol fees bylaw. So they all deal with alcohol, but quite different aspects of it. And this is open until the 12th of September, after which we will have hearings at this stage scheduled for the 14th of October, and then deliberations a week after that. And depending on how that goes, maybe adoption in November. So, any questions?
Right, any questions for Mika on her report? Elise? Thank you.
Unmute. Okay, can you hear me? Thanks, Mika.
Yes, we can. Perfect.
Okay, thank you. I had a couple of questions, and my apologies if somehow I haven't captured the correct information through reading it. But the first thing I wanted to ask about, so I'm looking at the alcohol policy and bylaw review document, and it talks about changing, I'm just bringing up the appropriate page, sorry, the high risk. So the on-licensed premises that we're going to expand the list of high risk on-licensed premises to include Class 1 restaurants. I just couldn't find in that document what counted as a Class 1 restaurant. Can I just confirm this is the document that goes out with the consultation to the community for their submissions? Okay.
The one that's as Appendix 1 in your agenda? Yes.
Yeah. So then I was like, well, if I can't find what Class 1 restaurant, I might have missed it in that document, but I don't think I could see it.
No, it is. It doesn't define Class 1 restaurant exactly. If you do go on the link, the policy does define it.
When you dive into it deeper,
it's a quite a complex definition to work in there.
Right.
So on page 5, which I think you're maybe referring to, it says higher risks on licensed trading hours. License applications get assigned a risk rating based on the type of activities that happen there. The ratings are set out in the sale and supply of alcohol fees regulations. So it is a bit of a jump because it was a lot of definition to fit into a very dense document already. So apologies for that. We did look at how we could fit that in there, but short and sweet is Class 1 restaurant is a restaurant that has a significantly separate bar area and operates that area as a tavern for at least one night a week.
Okay, what is a tavern versus a restaurant? Does that mean they're not providing food, they're just providing drink?
The main purpose is the sale of alcohol.
Okay, no alcohol. Okay, so that's Cool, that's helpful. I mean, I just feel like with any of these documents that go out to the community, the more, I know it's a dense document,
Yeah.
but the more we can clarify some of that stuff, the better for them to understand and submit.
Yeah, I
With
totally
full
agree and hear
understanding.
you. Yeah.
Thank you. Because we want to know what you think about the high risk changes. So understanding what that class 1 restaurant to me feels really critical to them commenting on that. The second question I had was flicking forward into the actual questions. I mean, unless Madam Chair, you guys want to go back to, are you happy for me to just carry on asking these questions?
Yep, no, that's fine. Carry
Okay.
on.
And sorry, I've just got to flip through the document again. Sorry, everyone. Okay. One was understanding the fees a little bit better, and my computer is just loading them. Oh, come on. And I noticed that the renewal fees are more expensive than the first application fees, particularly around those high risk events. So I'm now looking at the what's changing, the proposed increase in fees. And so the application fees for the very, high and very high risk, or for the very high risk, was less than the annual fee for renewals for the very high risk. And I just wondered what the reason for that was.
So we've put across a blanket increase of 35% across everything
so it's
for
just
the
that
year one.
percentage.
And
Okay.
it comes again from these fees are set in the Act. And the Act has that difference.
Okay, it's just
and
the
that is
percentage.
just to acknowledge like the extra processing that's involved,
Sure.
assessment with the higher risk
Okay.
premises, but that's not coming from council, that difference. It's just blanket increase of 35
Okay.
year one and then same year two.
Great. That's great. And then there was a question in the submission form around discretionary conditions for on licenses, off license for a sensitive sport. Hang on, sorry, I'm just finding the right page so I can refer. Licenses. Yeah, so where it says please refer to page, so it's question 6. Do you support the changes to discretionary conditions for special licenses? Please refer to page 7. I wasn't really sure what that was referring to. Was that referring to including marae and primary schools as the new locations, or I wasn't really clear on what that was referring to, this discretionary. So I referred to page 7 to try and flesh that out and make sure I knew what you were asking, but I wasn't clear. So apologies if I've missed something there.
No,
but I just wondered if
no,
you
you're
can
right.
understand
This is should have tested it with you before we.
It's when you're like a 3-month-old baby brain, you really need things to be very clear.
Or when you've been staring at it for months and months.
Yes,
Conditions. It refers to the section with the heading conditions.
Yeah.
So because there's not actually that much changing on this particular bit. Most of it is just clarifying the list, so sort of tidying it up. Things that are already stated in the Act, and we don't have to like restate. So it's kind of taking it away. And just
so that's what
again,
we're referring to. We're proposing to add to and clarify the list of discretionary
licenses. There are a few more that have been added, nothing super substantial, but keeping in mind that these are conditions that council are proposing could be added to a application or to a license when people apply, but it's not up to council whether it actually gets on there. That is up to the district licensing committee. So it's like a have you thought about this?
Level.
Yes. Just
yeah.
But yeah, I can see I acknowledge we can get
just some
confused
of that stuff
there.
if you're then submitting on these things, you're like, I don't know what I'm submitting on. Okay, that is the only thing. And just I guess I was thinking about, how you're changing it, that the distance between sensitive venues and say an off license is now the whole boundary proximity to the next thing, whereas once upon a time it was front door to front door. Is that's
For
correct?
off licenses,
But
yeah.
for off licenses, but that's not going to impact future renewals if they already achieved their license.
First? The whole document is worded that if you are already established, this shouldn't affect you.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Lovely.
Yeah.
Thank you, Madam Chair. That's all I had to ask. Thanks, Mika. It's great.
Right, no, they were good questions, Elise. Thank you for that. Andrew, any questions on?
Yep.
Please.
There's a lot of pages here. I'm not sure if, just call me up if I'm referring to the wrong, but there's over 200 pages on alcohol policy in this agenda. So I'll just reference some of them. Hopefully you can help me. Just to touch on what Elise was talking about, the costs of getting a license, and you mentioned it's going up by 35%, 2025, and then another 35% in 2026. Can you just explain why that is and what? And you said it doesn't quite cover costs. Can you just explain that to me?
So unlike a lot of council's fees, which council has a bit more of a say in setting, for alcohol, it was set by legislation in 2012. And when it was set, it was already a little bit low for what was happening. And then basically, we haven't been able to change that to keep up with, the normal inflation costs. But there is an unusual tool that you can use to change it, and more councils are now picking it up. Kapiti Coast recently adopted it as well, and that is making this alcohol fees bylaw. So it's not the normal way to go about setting fees, but it's the only way to go about setting it for alcohol licenses and actually, stop running at a massive loss.
Okay, so centrally regulated that cost, and it's not an extra burden that the council has to cover the increase or changes of the bylaws.
Sorry, could you rephrase that question?
Yeah, you're being required to make these changes to the costs by central government.
No, we're not required, but council is running it.
Cost increases.
Sorry,
I'm just concerned about there's a massive cost increase, for a business.
Yes.
Just
So this is kind of a bit of a user pays scenario. There is an element of public good, and that would be council helping to run sort of the administrative part of the hearings, but a lot of that license, the person who benefits is generally the applicant. It's not the community, so it's not it's not like a road that everyone uses and everyone benefits. It's one person's business. And yes, the community benefits by being able to access a commodity, but it's still that one person that's making profit, or that one business that's making a profit from it. So it's a bit, like.
Are there choices in the decisions being made by the Waipawa District Council that are causing that increase to be of 35% or of a greater scale than it was in the past?
We haven't been able to change the fee in the past. So this is the first time since 2012 that this fee is being changed. So you have to consider like that more than a decade.
I just should put my background, like rates have never gone up by so much. I'm just concerned that, every aspect of council business should be concerned about any cost to a ratepayer or fee payer, and be looking to minimise that. And just 35% increase year on year for a business is, to my mind, significant. But I don't understand it that well, so that's why I need your help.
Melissa's just jumped up, so I'll hand over to.
I might be able to answer your question. So we, up until now, the fees have been set by central government through, I'm guessing it's the Sale and Supply of Alcohol Act. Sorry, correct me if I'm wrong on that one, Mika. But because the fees that we can charge is set by central government. They're not cost recovering what it costs to deliver the service. They're well under. They haven't really increased since 2012. So what we're looking to do is to cost recover the service, alcohol fees and inspections and so on and so forth. So in order to do that, we have to do it through a bylaw. It's the only tool that we've got available. In terms of the 35%, I suppose that's a bit of a catching up on where the fees currently are, but also trying to balance that out because that is quite a significant jump. And so we're wanting to, I guess, kind of ease people into that.
Yep, I understand that. So, I've recently talked to Kelly from the Chamber of Commerce, and she's tells you about how hard it is for retail and restaurants in the economic climate. And, this would be another thing that would be hard for them to swallow. But obviously you need to do it because your costs are greater than 35%.
So just to be clear, sorry, council will still be running at a loss even after that full increase after 2 years. And it's not out of line with what other councils are doing with the same bylaw. In fact, it's a bit lower than what most other councils are doing.
And then just follow on from that, looking at the harm over time, and I couldn't see a clear trend in harm increasing over years. You have to correct me if I'm wrong, but there's a lot of pages there. So is there, could there be a reduction in sort of policy or cost to the council with the alcohol bylaws to reduce cost if harm is not increasing?
So this
and
is sort of
population's going up, so per capita perhaps harm is decreasing.
So this is a separate question or still related to the fees?
Somewhat. Yeah, separate question really.
Okay. It's sorry, I'm just getting a call. Yes, so it's relatively stable in Waipa, but it is kind of a difficult harm to gather data on because we don't gather it specifically for Waipa. We have it, and because if people are affected by it, it's in police records rather than in a health scenario. So the data that we do have tends to be a little bit wider than just Waipa. But the part of the alcohol control bylaw and the alcohol control bylaw specifically is one of those ones that we've had in place for so long that it's difficult to know that if we take it away, is that going to increase the harm or is the harm so low because it's there? And I guess the fees are not so much to address harm, it's more of that cost recovery. And then for the local alcohol policy, there are tweaks that could be made to reduce harm, and that's from learning from other councils and keeping in mind that most of what's in there is recommended by the regulatory agencies that deal with the alcohol harm and deal with implementing that policy. So they get to see firsthand if it's doing what it's supposed to do or what we wanted to do. And they've recommended that these things can be tweaked to make it better. So it's not like the changes are coming out of thin air, it's coming from the people that see if it's working or not firsthand. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you. That's good information. And I just want clarification. Elise asked about type 1 restaurant and being talking about a tavern. Examples in Cambridge, could you tell me, the Onyx restaurant or Alpino, what are they classified as? Are they taverns? Because I've got a separate bar area.
So a tavern is its primary purpose is the sale of alcohol. They do also sell food, but that's like more snack foods. Sorry, this is more of a Carl question. there aren't that many taverns in Waipa in general that are only taverns. I'm sorry, I can't off the top of my head tell you exactly where they are in Cambridge. But the difference is that a Class 1 restaurant has a bar area that operates as a tavern at least one night a week, but their primary purpose is selling food. They have the option of operating a certain part of the restaurant as a tavern, is the difference.
Thank you.
Elise?
Thank you. It was just a quick question around those fees. The cost recovery you're referencing, that's staff time, isn't it? That's what those fees are somewhat
Yes.
covering.
Yeah.
Is that right? Okay.
Yeah.
Thank
And
you.
yeah, that's in relation to like the higher risk, the more time gets put in to find, because they have to provide information. They're required to provide certain information. So more time doing that.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so if there's no further questions from Andrew or Elise, we can, or anyone else? Kirsty?
Can I please just provide a point of clarification? There was a question asked earlier about reviewing of the local alcohol policy. I just wish to clarify that section 97 of the Sale and Supply of Alcohol Act 2012 does require council to review the policy no later than 6 years after it came into force and no later than 6 years after the most recent review was completed. So just we wish to provide that clarification. Thank you.
That's a good clarification. Thank you for that. Okay, right, well, the three of us, yep, no, we'll move it, but we also need to do a few decision-making bits first. So what's the best way to do it, Joe? Do you think we should just move through this list? Yep. Okay. Just have a look on, I don't know what it is on our agenda. I've just got a paper copy. 38. 38. Nice to see you, Stephen. Thank you. Right. So I believe, no, not 38. I'm assuming, Elise and Andrew, that the community board will be making a submission on the alcohol policy. Yep. You guys in agreement with that? Right.
Yep.
Thank you. All right. That's our first one. All right, our next one is that the community board supports or does not support the changes to the rules around one-way door policies and discretionary conditions for on licenses. This, oh, I missed that one. I can come back to that one, can't I? Yeah. So obviously, if these come up and we need to ask Mika further clarifications on these, this is a good time to do that.
Are you doing a submission?
Are you wanting to stay in this discussion or no? Okay. That's fine. That's just the three of us on this, which might take us a little bit of time, but we'll work through them. I'm happy to support those. So just waiting. I'll need a clear steer from both of you before we go on.
Oh, sorry. Okay, so yes, support the inclusion of new high risk on licensed premises and the new hours of 9 to 1.
Okay, yep, and the one door policies. Yeah, I had skipped that first one by mistake, so I was going back to it.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no, that's good.
Yeah, and I guess I would go back to just, I mean, maybe it's too late to put the documents have all been printed, but I stand by my point that maybe this isn't very clear for people what they are submitting on, and particularly when it says to the list of higher risk. I'm like, where's that list? I want to see that list.
Yes.
Yeah. Referencing. Oh, yes, go Mika. Thank you.
Sorry, I guess that the intent is also to read it in conjunction with the draft, because you can't get the you just can't get the nuance of it by just reading this document.
that's fair. But yeah, that's fair. Okay. But yes, happy to support the new hours.
Yeah.
And that.
So Mika, when people receive the submission form, the paper form, I'm sorry if this is a silly question, they will obviously, will they get the whole in paper form of the draft?
Yeah, if they pick up a hard copy from the office or from the libraries or the Citizens Advice Bureau, there is a hard copy next to it. Yeah. Or in it. Yeah.
So they can
Online,
take
will
that
they
away?
have to-
Yep.
Okay.
If they're online, will it be, is there a link on to the draft? Okay, thank you. Sorry, I haven't gone there. Thank you.
Okay. Andrew, you're happy with
Yes, yep.
supporting the changes
Yeah,
via
we
RIS?
discussed those at the previous meeting. I'm sure that Mika was present, so
Yep.
I
Yeah,
get the
lots
gist
of
of that.
familiar.
Thank you.
Yep. And you're happy to support the one-way door policies? Yep.
Yes, I am.
Agree or doesn't agree with the distance. The policy currently sets out that an off license must not be located less than 40 meters near a sensitive facility or community facility.
Yeah, I'm happy with that.
Yep, I'm also happy with that one.
Mika, you know, I represent a rural ward. Can you tell me about any implications of these for a rural ward?
Mika, you're just on mute there.
Sorry, this is in reference to question 3. The resolution 3, sets out that off license must not be located 40 meters near a sensitive facility.
Yes.
So so in a rural community, there are very few off licenses, so it shouldn't really impact. But it's the same harm, and which is the thing that this is trying to address. So yeah, there is more likelihood that they might be closer together because it's a rural community, it's smaller, but did consider that there's very few off licenses in rural areas, and so it shouldn't really impact. And this is not affecting established licenses. It's not going to change for established licenses.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. All right, so we're all on agreement on that one. Elise, you agreed with that?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. All right, supports does not support the cap on off licenses in the main shopping centres of Te Awamutu, Kihikihi, Leamington and Cambridge. I support that cap. Andrew, yes.
Off licenses. Yeah, I'm okay with that for off licenses. Yep.
Okay. Right. Supports does not support the changes to the rules around one-way door policies and discretionary conditions for club licenses. So that's different from the one before, which was on licenses. Mika, sorry, can you just give us a very brief explanation of the differences there? And you're just on mute again. Yeah.
Sorry.
And you're back. No, all good.
For club licenses? That's
Yes,
what
just
you're
a
asking?
difference. Yes, yes.
Club license is, I can find the exact definition for you. I'm just wondering if we could maybe share this document on the big screen, make it a bit easier. So club license is alcohol is allowed to be sold and supplied for consumption on the premises to a member of the club, a member's guest, or an authorized visitor. This is the kind of license held by sports clubs or an RSA, for example. Special licenses are held for specific events described in the license. There are 2 kinds of special license, an on-site special license and an off-site special license. Special licenses are used for things such as festivals, concerts, or weddings.
Okay. Okay. Okay, Andrew, Elise. Yep, I'm
Support
happy
number
with that one
5, yeah.
too. Yep, Andrew. Yep. Okay, supports does not support the changes to discretionary conditions for special licenses.
This is the one that I was a little bit
Yes.
unsure on what those changes were, but it sounds like there aren't really any significant changes. Mika, is that right?
Would you like to see? Oh, I can't share my screen.
It's so hard because you have to keep flicking back between page 7 and it's hard to keep going back to it.
Yeah, we did look at how people interacted with the original engagement. And we found most people looked at it on the computer. So I guess we were kind of hoping people would have the two open next to each other.
I've got like a Zoom screen and then I've got my documents. It's a problem.
Yeah. Sorry, I'll just find the exact ones just so I don't tell
That's
you
okay.
the wrong thing.
Take your time, that's all good. We can come back to that one. We'll go to the next one. Agrees, does not agree with the 24-hour permanent alcohol ban areas, locations, boundaries, and times. So that was the skate parks and the updated times there. I'm happy with that.
I'm happy with that.
So does that include now Carter's Flat, Cambridge,
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
being a 24-hour alcohol ban area?
Yes.
Correct.
That's same as what are the Cambridge CBD?
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
Happy with that one?
Yep.
Okay. Do you want to comment back now, Mika, on that discretionary conditions?
Yes, for the discretionary conditions, it's for special licenses, it's mainly tidying it up. So removing the ones that are sort of double ups. The main ones being that large scale events over 400 people are required to produce an alcohol management plan. So how will they operate their bars, that sort of thing. And again, keeping in mind this is discretionary conditions, so this may or may not be added to a license. Conditions relating to non-glass types of vessels to avoid injury and damage. The number and kind of alcoholic beverages. So that's conditions restricting the number of alcoholic beverages and kinds of alcohol that can be sold and supplied per patron per transaction. So again, that's very event specific for the district licensing committee to decide if it's better they can have a limited supply of high strength, high volume beverages per transaction, for example. Engagement with police, medical officer of health, and licensing inspector. So before a large scale event, meeting with these people who are the ones who enforce the license to make sure they have this sufficient things in place to make sure it's run safely. Queue management. So yeah, just making sure you have a way of managing queues. Staggered closing times for bar venues inside the venue, and security. So a minimum ratio of security staff to patrons, and or specific of a number of security staff to be operating at certain times of the event. So it is, yeah, for special licenses, there are a few more.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm happy with those.
Yep.
I support those proposed changes.
Andrew, you happy?
Yes, I
Yep.
support.
Okay. Agrees, does not agree with the 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. permanent alcohol ban areas, locations, boundaries, and times. I'm happy with that.
I'm happy with that.
Yep.
Yep.
Now, supports does not support the proposed fees increase.
Yes. I support that. And I guess I support that because otherwise council is footing the bill for a private enterprise fee. And that doesn't seem fair. Yeah. I understand that it's going to be difficult and it's hard for restaurants, and at this point in time, the fees haven't increased since 2012, which is quite a long time. There's been a lot of inflation since then, and maybe wage changes as well. So it doesn't seem fair that alcohol licensing should be subsidised by council, which to a great extent, which it sounds like it currently is being subsidised by virtue of the fact that those fees don't cover the staff costs. That would be my thoughts on it.
Yeah, I agree with you, Elise. Yeah.
But of course, acknowledge that all fees increases are difficult for businesses, particularly when they're struggling.
Yeah.
Nonetheless, it's not council's job to subsidise those things, which are intended to prevent harm to our community.
Yeah. Sorry, Andrew, did you say you support that?
Yeah, I support that because of what Elise said. You know, it's just passing on a cost that it has to cover.
Yeah, agree. Okay. All right. So the other thing we have to do is delegate authority to myself to finalise our community board submission to the alcohol policy and bylaws consultation in consultation with the community board members, and ensure the submission is received by council by 5 p.m. Thursday, the 12th of September 2004. And we'll do the whole thing. We'll also receive Mika's report. So if there's no final comments or questions for her, I will happily move that. Can someone second? Elise, thank you. Great. Okay. Thank you so much. Oh, please. Yeah.
Yeah, I just found it, hopefully it's constructive. I just found it quite hard to understand the many pages, and there's similar titles to different reports, and I couldn't quite figure out where it all came in. So to effectively make decisions and contribute for a community board member might be to look in the future to have a clearer contents or explanations would be very helpful, and even for the governance of the meeting to display the pages, perhaps, because if we're looking for information on our device, we can only have sort of one page on a screen, and then we're getting information, and then we're trying to vote on a point. Kind of need both things in front of us at the same time. It's very difficult to do that. Thank you.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Thank you. Okay, thank you very much, Mika. It's a big meaty one, this one. So oh, thank you. Yeah, you didn't have a question, Elise, did you? No. Okay, great. Thank you so much, Mika. Appreciate that. Thank you. Right. I might just adjourn for a little 5-minute break, and then we'll come back and look at our other two items, few more items on our agenda. Thank you, Zoe. Right, let's get into our next item, which is Elise. Oh, there she is. Great. Nice to see you. Thank you. Right, the Pahoro delegation gift. So I'll just pass over to Joe for that item.
Thank you. The purpose of the report that you've got in the your agenda today is to approve the purchase of a gift for the delegation to Pahoro in September this year. We have got delegates going over. It is self-funded. So in terms of the community board's contribution, what we are looking at is purchasing a gift to present to the mayor. The gift that has been selected, an example of the type of artwork is included in your report there. So it would be a custom designed gift. Estimated cost at $150, but just allowing $200 in case there is any associated costs with that, and then anything that is not spent can be returned to uncommitted. Is there any questions on that one?
No questions. Happy to move that recommendation. Good. Looks really great.
Yeah, I think that's an appropriate gift. It's also one that's easy to travel with, and yeah, I think that's fine. Elise, any comments, questions on that? No, all good. Andrew, you okay? Yeah. Right. Okay. Yep. Oh yes, I'll second it. Yes, I'll second it. Sorry. Yes, I'll second it. Yes, and all in favour? Great. Okay. Right. Representation review submissions. Right. You folks. You've moonwalked out again, which is appropriate. Thank you. Okay, so back to the core three. Right, so I'll put over to Joe again for a little bit of update on this report.
Thank you. So we've got the representation review submission report in your agenda there. So the purpose of including this report, which includes the report that went to Finance and Corporate, is for the community board to determine whether they would like to make a submission on the proposal. So just to kind of run that through the highlights of the proposal, what this is gone out with is proposing a reduced number of councillors. So there would be one Māori ward councillor, 3 general ward councillors in Cambridge, 2 general ward councillors in Te Awamutu and Kiki, and 2 general ward councillors in the Waipa Rural General Ward. So that is 7 general ward councillors and 1 Māori ward councillor. So that does involve the combining of what you've got, the current Prongia and Kakapuku general ward and the Mangatautari ward. So combining those two together to create what is now the Waipa Rural Ward. That has been done in terms of being able to make the numbers work, in terms of when we're doing representation reviews, we need to make sure that all elected members in the district represent a similar number of constituents, and it's kind of got to be within kind of plus or minus 10% of each other. So it's even representation across the district. So we needed to do that combining of the 2 rural wards to be able to reduce down the number of councillors. In terms of the impact on the community board, that would be still the same, with 4 elected members from Cambridge, 1 elected member from the Mangatautari subdivision. So that Mangatautari subdivision would still stay in place for the community board. As the wards and the community, the wards and the subdivisions are separate. Because we will have, at the moment, you've got 1 Cambridge ward councillor and 1 Mangatautari ward councillor. There will not, under the proposal, there will no longer be a Mangatautari ward councillor. So it's the proposal in here is that there be 2 appointed members on the community board from the Cambridge General Ward and or the Waipa Rural General Ward. So that would be selected at the time. As you know, the councillors are appointed onto your community board at the start of the triennium. So there would be a decision made around the council table as to whether that would be you know, 1 Cambridge, 1 Waipa rural ward, or 2 Cambridge, or depending on what was thought best at the time. In terms of, because of the way that they're just to the numbers work, there is also a boundary change that is a minor boundary change proposed in the Karapiro area to bring part of that area through into the Cambridge ward to make the numbers work with wards. But in terms of, we've also replicated that change through to the subdivision, so that does affect on your areas. It was thought that was the best way, best approach to avoid people, you know, voting for you know, a Cambridge councillor and then a Maungatautari subdivision representative on the community board. You know, that would probably create an element of confusion when it got to voting time. So it is a relatively minor adjustment that is proposed in that Karapiro area. Anyone have any questions?
Any questions, Elise or Andrew? Please, Elise.
Thank you. Sure, you clarified for me that difference around the Maungatautari subdivision versus ward. I was a bit confused about how you could have a Maungatautari rep on the board, but not a Maungatautari ward. So thank you for clarifying that. I guess what I haven't captured maybe really well from the documents we have in front of us is what this new structure is hoping to achieve. Like, there is some reference to efficiency, things like that. I would probably appreciate understanding the what we're going to achieve by rejigging things from here. And that may have been discussed around the council table in more detail, but any more insight that you could provide would be helpful. Mike, obviously, and Phil are out of the discussion unless they're happy to weigh in on that purpose, but just understanding that more would be helpful.
I think that the reduction in the number of councillors was really councillor driven, and it was about, they saw that was a way of enhancing or making more efficient in a different decision-making structure.
Okay. That's the main thing, is trying to build some efficiency around it. Okay.
I guess it was just asking the question, would a smaller team be more effective in, you know, in making some of those decisions? But yeah, happy to have a bit of a discussion about it between the three of us. I spoke to Alana beforehand, and she's happy with the status quo.
Right.
And I am going back and forth a little bit, and I keep thinking about the benefit to the ratepayers. I don't know what benefit there is to the ratepayers in having less councillors, less representation, and obviously democracy is the biggest player in the game, and you can't choose who is voted on, and that's what makes this whole process hard, because you could have a very highly effective smaller team, or you could have a really highly effective larger team. It all just depends on the people. So yeah, happy to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I guess that's what I keep coming back to, is what's the purpose? What problem are we solving?
Yeah.
By changing it. Given that there will be another rep review, you know, we are required to do regular representation reviews. We did one not long ago. So just wanting to understand, well, what problem this is fixing, and if this will fix the problem. I'm interested in your thoughts, Andrew, on that, the Gigantosaur rural ward, and if that, and obviously that's something that needs to happen to enable the smaller number of councillors around the table. So interested in everyone's thoughts on that. As a Cambridge ward community board rep, I don't know how that would impact things, but obviously you'd be hearing from a broader section of the community around the district.
Elise, just before you go on, I'll just
Yes.
come back to Jo because she's just got a little bit of info
sure.
about the advantages, disadvantages.
Yeah,
Thank you,
just-
great.
It was, just to point out page 370 of your agenda, those advantages of the initial proposal that are listed there. So,
Yeah.
Which are bringing rural residents together in Waipa one combined ward, has been harder in the past to get representation in some of the rural wards. So combined rural ward would increase the number of potential candidates and reducing the number of councillors, which the recent survey indicated support for. So those are just some of the, the advantages that we have listed in the.
Yeah, and I mean, this survey was a very small sample size, so I guess I'm not relying strongly on that. But of course, we're going to go out to the public and hear from them from a hopefully a larger sample size, which will be great. Yeah, I guess I don't have a strong opinion on it. Happy to hear what you guys about it as well.
I wish we could find out what the public feel about it first before we, do you know what I mean? It's hard that we kind of go on at the same time, and that's appropriate, but also it would be great to kind of hear what the general feeling is. Yeah. Andrew.
Yeah, I've been talking to people and I think they've fundamentally understand that having less councillors could facilitate better governance and decision making. So as a philosophy, I support that, and people I've talked to, that's the most important thing. The people I talk to in the community, I think understand that. And I just have a bit of clarification needed with this for the rural wards. And Jo, you just read those advantages of the initial proposal there, and it's a big issue for the rural ward. It has been harder in the past to get representation in some of the rural wards. So a combined rural ward could increase the number of potential candidates. The question is, how would that increase the number of potential candidates?
I think because you're spreading it across the combined, I think particularly when you have, in the past, and we did do a combination last time, the smaller the rural that you have, like, Mangatochi, or, it can be, and, and even kind of one seat wards in some divisions can sometimes be harder to, in the rural communities, can be harder to get that number of candidates through. So you've kind of got that broader pool. So rather than one at Mangatochi and the other from the other one, there's a greater pool of people.
No, I don't really agree with that. Don't understand how that would draw more people. I think that's related to marketing and understanding what the council does. It's completely different to, I just think you'd have the same people applying. So instead of 2 from Mangatautari and 2 from the other side, you just have 4 in total. Why would that change?
I think it is some experience we've had in the past where some of those, it can be difficult in those smaller wards to get a pool. And that does depend on who's available at the time to come forward. It's just kind of something that we can see where you have kind of smaller rural wards that you don't necessarily get the number of people coming forward. And, you do, when you don't get a number of people coming forward, you can end up in a situation which has happened in larger wards as well, where you just have one candidate and that person gets elected unopposed. So,
and just watch that mic again.
372, which it's got rural ward split options B, C, D. And I mean, A is not shown, but A is described earlier as the preferred option of one combined ward, I assume. But then
these were taken from the representation review we did last time. So they were just pulled out of a presentation we did when we were looking at it before.
Yeah, it's just my question. It says alternative doesn't meet communities of interest test. Can you just explain that to me? How it doesn't, and that still applies in this review to this year.
That is what we were discussed as part of this process, because it was the way that it was was dividing the district up with that kind of split for that one round there, where you've effectively got kind of people down the bottom area of the map towards the south who are really kind of traditionally do look to Te Amutu and Kiki, and actually you're saying actually you are now in the same community of interest as the people in Karapiro, you know, and that's not where they would naturally align to. So, you know, that communities of interest, where the kind of people kind of currently gravitate to, or, you know, and so because you've got that big kind of area down the south of kind of Te Amutu, that doesn't not seem to kind of really align with that other kind of, particularly when you're kind of looking at those far reaching areas of the current.
Yeah, okay, thank you, Joe. I understand that. So is this going to go out in like if a public were going to submit and wants information, they'd see these pictures?
These are available on these AB, because they didn't make the communities of interest test. What I think the paper might be available, just check on our consultation page. Certainly this report is available on our, no, the report is not being linked. Oh, there's actually, I think, a link to the report.
Yeah, I suppose it just shows
in the statement of proposal, actually, there's a link to the report. So if you're in there, in the statement of proposal, you could find that.
Okay. It just kind of shows, like it already puts a negative slant on the way other people think about the other options. And you know, option A being the combined rural ward also doesn't meet the communities test, right? It's the same.
It's bringing kind of two kind of like communities together. So it's one of the limitations that we have with the representation review at this stage of the process. When we've got an initial proposal at this stage, we have to go out with just one solution to talk to the to ask the community about feedback. When we're, you know, in the earlier stages, if you're looking at pre-engagement and it's not subject to those legislative requirements, you can kind of talk to the community about a couple of different solutions. But this phase, you've got to choose one solution and go out to the community and say, what do you think about that? And get their feedback on that. It's really about where we are at this point in time.
Andrew, how do you feel about that Waipa Rural General Ward having one person representing the entire rural space in Waipa?
Two councillors. Be two councillors, wouldn't it?
Two councillors, and in the community board, one Mangatautari.
Yes, sorry. Yes, apologies.
You know, it's unknown territory, but comfortable with that.
Okay.
So my phone.
You know, proportionate. I looked at it. Proportionate. I was thinking about the makeup of the council today, and I had this discussion with some of the councillors somewhere, and there was a lot of rural exposure on the council today. And going forward, the proportion of rural seats is actually greater than today in today's scenario. So, although it doesn't explicitly represent Mangatautari and the other side of the district, there is perhaps could be said a greater rural representation on a whole. So that has some support from me.
Okay.
It's helpful to hear your thoughts. What I guess an advantage so there's two, with reducing the total number of councillors, I guess that remuneration pool is spread, that remaining remuneration pool is spread around councillors, so they are going to be better remunerated for the good and hard work they do for our community. So I see that as an advantage, particularly in the hope that you'll continue to attract really people who maybe otherwise don't have the time, you know, because remuneration where it's set means that people need to either own their own business or be semi-retired to be able to stand as a councillor with the remuneration being kind of at a part-time job level. So maybe that higher remuneration supports people to give more time to the job. So that could be a positive for reducing numbers. But also it's, as you said at the beginning, Jo, it's democracy. And if we reduce the number of people at the table, are there some checks and balances by having more people at the table, I guess, decision making. And in small communities like Cambridge, do you end up having the same people representing you over and over again because they're well known and very visible? Does having those greater numbers allow for a little bit more natural refreshment of those positions that are held potentially? Whereas if you've got a very small, tight number, maybe those roles aren't as refreshed. So I don't have, these are just some of the pros and cons that I've been thinking through around the total number. Our last rep review, we dropped a number of councillors. This rep review, we're dropping the number of councillors. Is there a trend happening? Does this keep happening at every rep review, that we just keep reducing the number of councillors? Maybe not. Just something that I also, I guess we added the Māori ward councillor, so that maybe balanced that. But are we shrinking that rep number around the table over time?
Just to clarify, in terms of just the comments in relation to remuneration, that's not really a factor that can be considered as part of this representation review. It's very much about what seats are around the table, as opposed to who sits on those seats or how you manage to get them there. So there's kind of quite that distinction in the process. And I suppose just in terms of our last representation review, I think we had gone quite high up in the numbers. The time before that, we were up at 13 councillors.
Right.
I think even at the time that proposal was adopted, there were some limitations in where we were, that had always been some desire expressed to kind of drop the number back down, because it was felt that 13 was too many. It was just constraints that occurred that proposal. So
okay,
Andrew.
When you moved in the last year,
Oh, just watch that mic, sorry.
when you dropped numbers last time, were the concerns that were raised and the benefits that were raised, do they become actualised on the change?
I think one of the primary drivers last time, because was the way we'd had it structured, was kind of effectively would mean, as Cambridge grew, we were going to keep having to add another Cambridge councillor around the council table, and the numbers, the way that it was structured, the numbers of councillors around the table were only going to continue to grow. So it was about finding a solution that could be a bit more sustainable and not end up with, just keeping on growing and growing and growing the number of councillors around the council table because of growth, but kind of looking at how we structure our wards. So there was, more of that even spread and split. So it wasn't so impacted by that growth. It could be more balanced across the district, which I think was achieved with that solution, that kind of combining of some of the rules that we needed to do to help with that.
I have a further question, really for information, is on the Māori ward, and with the change in government, and it's been in the news recently about reviewing that and mandating that local government reviews that. Where does Waipa sit with that? And not opinion, but what's happening in that space?
In terms of, because we were one of the councils that adopted our Māori ward last time when they made the changes to the legislation, we are now required to make a decision by the 6th of September as to whether we retain that position or disestablish it. There will be a council report on the 27th of August. The next.
Isn't the central government requiring taking some responsibility there and dictating what you can and can't do about Māori ward?
Yep. So part of that paper, the councillors will need to decide whether they want to retain the Māori ward position, and if if they do that, then there will be a poll with the elections next October. Otherwise, if the council was to decide that they were going to disestablish the position, then we would need to be looking at either going back to our 2019 structure with the 13 councillors, or doing another shortened representation review. So it would effectively mean we would be starting this process again in a really short time frame.
So say on September the 6th, you decide to keep the seat. What was the next
On the 27th.
27th?
Yeah.
You said something about a poll.
So if we retain it on the 27th, then next year when people get their voting papers in October, they will also receive a poll, which will ask people the question about whether they want to retain the Māori ward or not.
Is that a binding or a poll or a vote?
Yeah, so it'll same as your voting papers, it'll same process. So there'll be a yes or a no box to tick, and it'll be counted and conducted in the same way, and with the voting papers for the candidates are processed as part of that process.
And that would mean that a plus or minus the seat if it was won or lost.
Well, what actually happens is, say there is a poll and so if there is a poll to keep the Māori ward, then it just stays though. But if the poll, the Māori ward position is lost, the Māori ward councillor actually stays in their seat for the 3 years, and the council during that 3 years is required to do a representation review and to remove that Māori. Because essentially when you're doing the structure that we've got here, and we're looking at the numbers for the general ward seats, we've taken a portion out for the Māori ward to account for the Māori ward population. So we're eligible. So we would have to do a representation review where we put the estimated Māori ward voters back in, and we would be doing another representation review.
Thank you for explaining that.
Right. Any further questions, Elise or Andrew? If not, we'll start working our way through the different points. Yeah, Zoe, would you mind putting it on the screen there for us? That would be awesome. Thank you. Can you see that, Elise?
Yeah, hang on, I've just got to sort out my screen.
Yeah.
That's bigger.
Zoe's going to make it a touch bigger.
Thank you. Yeah, that's great.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you. Okay. We will make a submission. Are you guys happy that we'll do that?
Yes.
Yep. Okay. Now, does not support all aspects of this proposal. If we support it, no other questions are required, but we can go through it and throw our support behind the ones that we are happy with and the ones that we aren't. So support everything? Yep, which means, oh, sorry, Andrew, just pop your microphone on.
Yes, I support that.
Okay, which means we don't need to go through any of those other ones if we decide we support the whole thing.
That's correct.
Okay. Elise?
Support. I'm just trying to decide if it's a full support or just like aspects of it. That's where I'm getting a little bit. Well, I guess all the aspects are simply to meet the representation requirements in order to drop the councillors from 10 to 7. So it's really asking the question if we're okay with that, and then doing everything required to achieve that, isn't it? Names. And it's just the three of us taking the vote tonight. Is that right, Madam Chair?
I'll just go to Joe for that. Hold on a second.
Just in terms of just if you wanted to provide any feedback when this proposal is done online, if you know, are agreeing
In part.
with the different aspects, if you go through and agree with them all one by one, as opposed to agreeing all aspects of the proposal, if you have any comments on any of the different aspects, you will be able to make them when you do the online. Whereas if you do the first I and accept all aspects of the proposal, when you go through, you won't be able to make any comments on the individual parts. So you can still get to the same place two different ways, depending on how much commentary you might want to provide.
But sorry, it's just us three taking the vote.
Yeah.
Because I think the proposed names for the wards are fine. The subdivision names are fine. The incorporating Karapiro into Cambridge seems fine to me. And as per your comment, Andrew, feeling like the rural ward option was a good fit potentially, then that's fine with me. It just comes down to 10 to 7 through dramatic a drop in councillor numbers would be my only hesitation. That would be my only hesitation is are we slicing off too many people too abruptly? Will that be a step change too far for, you know, the way the decision making feels? I know we are 5 of us plus our councillors, but we notice when we miss 1 or 2 councillors around, board members around the table, will that be a step too far? So that would be where I land. I support all those mechanisms to make the councillor numbers drop. My comment would be, is 10 to 7 too dramatic a change in one hit?
I think, I think for me it is. If you could choose the candidates and you could, you know, it was like a job interview process, you know, you could, but I just think, I'm probably not agreeing with the proposal to reduce from 10 to 7.
I think to Jo Reed's point before, she said it's about choosing how many, you know, the seats available around the table. And I think that was all for me, Jo. Thank you to clarify that. Do we feel like that's enough seats, enough heads at the table?
But regardless, that is how the process is still will unfold, you know, through that election process. And that's what we have to still consider.
That's 7 plus the mayor, is that right? Just, I know we've covered this one. That's 7 plus the mayor?
Yeah, it's talking about the number of general ward councillors. So it's 7 general ward councillors plus 91 councillor plus the mayor.
Yeah, so you've got 9 in total around the table under the new proposal. Is that right? Yeah, okay. Look at it that way, doesn't feel so bad.
Yeah.
Okay.
The future of local government is a combination of district councils together to form whatever you call it, the 3 water super councils, yada yada. Has it been on the radar, Waipa amalgamating with other? I haven't heard about Waipa, but I've heard about other councils. Is there work coming in terms of just the whole district councils joining together, or is this a pie in the sky discussion?
Through you, Madam Chair, my understanding is that the Future for Local Government review recommendations have not been picked up and supported by this coalition government. Sorry, in terms of whether councils amalgamate, no, this council hasn't spoken out on that in recent times. We are more focused on working collaboratively across boundaries. So as part of the Future Proof sub-regional partnership, working with those forums, working groups, decision-making bodies, similarly working with our partner councils. So most recently in the economic development area, working with Hamilton City Council, Waikato District, Metamata Piako, specifically, but in the wider Waikato region by way of example. There's definitely a focus on collaboration and partnership with our adjoining councils. We do some shared services that you're possibly aware of also, and through CoLab, which is, we are a shareholder in that council-controlled organisation that's focused on increasing effectiveness and efficiency across councils, but not specifically relating to amalgamation. Thank you.
Okay, so let's come back to it. It's tricky that there's just 3 of us doing this. It would have been great to have Alana and Sue alongside. But that's just,
Yeah,
that's
just
how it's.
appreciate their opposition to it a little bit more. I'm always pro efficiency, always.
Yeah. Yeah.
Always.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what? I guess let's hear from the community, right? Like,
we can just say that we support it, and then
can we say we would like to hear
that,
hear from the community more on it, Joe Greed, or is that not really an option? We need to make a decision tonight.
Well, I suppose the thing is that the initial proposal is out for consultation for a limited period of time. It will close on the 5th of September, and then the legislation says from the time of close, it only gives us a certain period of time to actually make a decision. So, there won't be any further chance for
opportunity.
This is really your one opportunity. I mean, if you are looking and want to consider what the community had already said, there was that early engagement
that
we did.
Which was pretty mini, really, when it comes to responses. I think it was like 59 or so.
But I don't think representation reviews and things like that don't necessarily attract a huge number of submissions. They're not, sorry, they're not in your dog policy, alcohol policy, long-term plan number of submissions. So you're never going to get. Well, I'm not saying you're never going to get, but they're not the ones that tend to get the large amount of submissions like some of those other projects I just talked about.
I mean, can we say we support with and just signal our concerns around the number of, the dramatic drop? But obviously, Andrew, you're happy with it as from the 10 to 7.
Yes, Elise, I am. Yep.
Yeah, cool. Can you tell, I'm happy to be persuaded, Andrew, can you share a bit more why the 10 to 7, feels good, feels like the right choice for you?
Just through my experience in Bing and watching corporates and large organisations, and then my personal experience in groups, I find that more effective decision-making process happens, less resources consumed in doing so, and they operate as, if not more performance. Is my experience and what I've learnt.
Cool, thank you.
We might need some.
I think we might see if we can. So really, it's is it talking about supporting in principle and the intent, but kind of maybe highlighting some concerns? Is that?
Or we would be, I don't know, we'd be happy for the general community to put their feelings forward and for us to rely on. I mean, I know we're supposed to, it's just such a tricky one. It's a really tricky one. I don't know.
I think, at least, an organisation demonstrates from the top its culture and performance. And I think the council and the mayor are leading with initiative here. And I think that sends a strong signal to the community that are moving in directions that perhaps they think the council needs to. So I think there's a strong, that's why another reason why I give strong support to it.
Cool. That's helpful, Andrew. Yeah, well, look, those are clear and compelling reasons. I think, Andrew, so I'm happy to put a vote of support in for the proposal in that instance. If that helps the decision being made. Joe,
Yeah.
I don't have the rest of the board here, but I always enjoy hearing other people's thoughts on the matter and happy to be open-minded around it. So
yeah,
I'm happy to support that in the interest of driving an efficient and effective, organization and decision making at this level.
Okay. I suppose we could support all aspects of the proposal, and in our submission, we could go into further detail about all the interesting points that we've brought up and all the different things in bigger detail. So it's not as simple as just supporting it or not supporting it. We can go through and be very
comment.
Yeah, provide our reasoning.
And
okay, should we do that?
Delegate the authority to you to do that anyway,
Yep.
right? So you
Yes.
will just pass that bias and summary of our points made tonight.
Okay. All right. Should we do that? Are you happy with that, Andrew? Okay. All right. Yes. Yep. Yep. So we're going to receive these are our recommendations. We're going to receive Joe's report, our representation review 2024 submissions. We are going to make a submission on the representation review, and we are going to support all aspects of this proposal, and we're going to delegate all authority to myself to finalize our submission in that review process.
It's just supporting all aspect.
All aspect, yep. And then we will go through and provide our reasoning.
We put that up on the screen.
Yep. Okay. I think that's good. And then we can flesh it out a bit further. Yeah, I think so. What do you guys think? Add that in, that we support it in principle, and then we'll go further.
I think that allows you to clearly articulate your decision point then as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess it also gives us time to, do a little bit of our own individual engagement with the community and just see what people are thinking out there from their own perspectives.
I guess just bearing in mind that we have to have made these decisions and had these conversations publicly.
Yeah.
But so really our submission can only include what we've publicly discussed tonight, I guess. So just bearing that in mind. And maybe, Joe, do you just come back to us with that submission and rather than us going through all the points tonight, and then we could, we can just clear them off.
Yep. Yeah. Yep, that's fine with me. Yep, I'm happy. I'm happy to move that. Andrew?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Okay, all in favour? All three? Aye, thank you. Okay, great. All right, let's move on from that and move back to Joe again for our discretionary grant funding.
Okay.
Take your time.
So the purpose of this report really is to agree the approach to discretionary grant funding for the 2024/25 financial year. You have in this financial year 27,500 allocated from council. Obviously, a portion of that will need to be allocated to ANZAC. So really the purpose of this report here today is to look at any criteria that any revision in the report includes some proposed recommendations for changing your criteria for your grants. You know, our criteria in our application forms haven't been looked at for some time. So looking at kind of honing down on the things that are important to you, and really kind of thinking about now that you have got less money available to spend in this financial year, how are you best to approach allocating that? And so there are some criteria for discretionary grants that are listed in recommendation B there, but you will also see if you go down to your report on page 456 of your agenda, it's all it's about thinking about potentially any other criteria that you might want to apply to any grants, and maybe that might be about looking at only funding groups or clubs or organisations that have a base in Cambridge. Maybe thinking about, do you want to put a maximum level of funding on grant allocations that people can, well, grant applications that people can submit to? So, you know, is it that people, you know, can't submit for anything greater than, you know, 2,000 or something? It's just kind of an option maybe when you've got lesser funds available to maybe think about how you might make sure that you're making the best use of those funds, sending kind of a clear message to your community about the type of funding that you're looking to allocate. Because if you've only got, you know, with that reduced sum, if you're only looking to allocate smaller sums, that, you know, it's a good thing to be telling those people in the community that's what your thinking is, so they know whether it's suitable for them to apply for funding or not. And it's also about thinking about how you want to approach the year. So that's about, you know, maybe either agreeing to hold a funding round or maybe accepting discretionary grant applications throughout the year, or taking some other approach. So, you know, really the purpose of the report was to articulate a few proposals for you to consider about your approach this time.
Okay. Right. More discussions for the core three.
Yeah.
Oh no, fine. Yeah.
Our councillors can weigh in.
You're back.
Core five.
Half back.
Core five.
Half back.
Okay, well, let's start with you guys then.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
What was agreed on the other night when you had your discussion over in Te Amutu? Could a lot of that be brought more?
So the purpose of we did have that to bring the community, any members of the community board and the Prongi Award committee together to just have an initial kind of brainstorm on kind of any ideas that might be. I was particularly interested to find out kind of things like which parts of the, you know, form and information that you found useful, which type of criteria that you really found useful when you were considering grants. So that has been reflected in that paper from the original.
When does this have to be decided by?
Well, the thing is, well, I was hoping today, in terms of, obviously, if you don't feel ready to do that, then that is something that you could all agree on. Obviously, if you are looking at having a funding round or making allocations, you know, we are now August. And obviously your next meeting is not till September. We are getting inquiries from community organisations that are approaching us now saying what is happening, you know, when are the grant allocations going to open up? So there is at the moment, you know, until you make these decisions, there is a void of information in that area in terms of what we can go back and tell people in our community.
Now, the reason why I asked that, I mean, there's probably always groups asking when it's open.
Yeah.
But the
Well, they're
reason
asking
why
that.
I'm asking that is because you are missing a couple of members here tonight. And perhaps like some of these other agenda items, you know, whether you need a full house to discuss them, to make a decision and on this item and perhaps some of the other ones. But yeah, so that's why I was asking that question. When does it need to be decided, and would it be better to wait till you've got the other two groups together, two members together, so you can all have a proper informed discussion on it, and then come back to your September meeting?
I suppose you're going to have no guarantees that you'll have a full complement next time.
Yeah.
You could meet beforehand informally.
No, I
right.
suppose, and now it's about making a decision, and you need to do that in an open public meeting. So it needs to be in this format, the next discussion that happens on it.
Yeah, I support all the improvements that we discussed at our workshop the other night. I thought they were constructive. And I didn't actually realise that we'd have to come to a vote to agree on those. I thought it was just a done deal. So happy with that, except probably just the discretion of the community board to decide how much funding we give. I think that the community board doesn't really get much authority on many things at all. So I think just how much it gives to any organisation should be solely at the discretion of the community board without council input. So if we wanted to advertise that people should apply for such, yeah, I agree, we discussed that, but should be no mandate that we vote on now, I believe.
I guess what we need to, oh, sorry.
No, I was just saying, any kind of criteria, like saying, we won't accept funding applications above 5,000 or anything, would need to be agreed by the community board, not by council, but agreed by community board at the meeting to be able to kind of apply those grant criteria. Because, you know, those criteria are, you know, key to you making those distribution decisions. So it's important that it's done in an official meeting by the community board.
Yeah, I'm happy to discuss those criteria, and we did discuss them at the workshop, Andrew, you're right, but just articulate them clearly here. In my mind, we've got this smaller pool of money. So a big question I think we need to discuss is whether we do a single funding round or two funding rounds, as we've historically done, and discuss the pros and cons for that, or not doing a funding round, but just having quite limited criteria, a cap of $1,000, Cambridge-based groups, and that can come in throughout the year. Like, I'm not saying that's a better option, but I think we should land on either a single or a double funding round or no funding round. And maybe we need to probably decide what our funding round is that we can allocate to the community, because we have to reserve funds for Anzac and Armistice and Christmas tree lights. You know, like there's a few little things we need to keep some coins in our back pocket for. And in the absence of having a real hero project that we want to pursue, do we keep some coins in our back pocket to update the Christmas decorations with, you know, nothing dramatic and life-changing, but some money behind to get them looking a little bit smarter? So I think we probably need to prescribe that a little bit tonight, so we know what our funding is that we can go to the community with and how we're going to be applying that, whether that's a funding round or throughout the year.
Mike?
Okay, there's a few questions in there. First of all, the recommendations here for the criteria, I agree with all three there, okay? 1, 2, and 3. Coming to a funding round, I'm a huge fan of having a funding round. I don't like the drip feeding as you go. It just tends to be, it's just too erratic, it's too haphazard, you don't think about it properly. So a funding round, do it once, and yeah, do it well. Totally works for me. I'd probably go one round given how limited the funding pool is now. And yeah, to Andrew's point about not limiting the discretion of what the community board funds, I actually support that. I want to see the community board with sort of full authority to do what it likes. So I was a little bit nervous about any, if we were advertising that we were only going to do $2,000 or something, that's kind of presupposing what comes in. There might be something that you really, really, really want to fund. So I'd kind of leave it out. I was a little bit torn on that because, you know, clarity is kindness. You don't want to give people false hopes, but yeah, overall, I think I'd like the community board to have discretion. So I think I've answered all the questions.
Yep.
But what would our top limit be, I guess, that we're giving away? That's what I think we need to decide tonight, because reserving the money in the back pocket for other things. I mean, total, the total pool that we're giving out.
Yeah, that's not one we've decided on before, so I'm not sure if that needs to be part of our considerations. I mean, I know we have less, so
but we have to keep some back for Anzac, right? How do we normally do that? Do we just go, with our 2 funding rounds, we've split it roughly around the 20,000, knowing we kept some in our back pocket. So are we just going to do a similar?
What we can do is for your next meeting, I think we could look at, I mean, it's armistice planning is underway, but it's still quite early days in terms of Anzac, but we could kind of look at bringing a report, which was kind of a draft budget report, which looked to kind of provide some estimates for you and make some early kind of commitments in relation to Anzac and any particular projects.
True,
that was
yeah.
you decided on kind of what was going to come, what was estimated was going to come out before you did your discretionary.
Yeah, that's true.
We can certainly do that.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
okay.
I had some thoughts on the form, some more thoughts on the form, if that's helpful, Joe. I don't know if anyone else has thoughts on that. I know we discussed asking about the vision and the purpose of the organisation.
Yes, and what we've done is in terms of the form, and as I've just kind of talked in the report about those ideas that we had, and then the idea is that once everyone has had these meetings, the other community board and probably ward committee, then we'll look to kind of finalise the form, because depending on what criteria each group agrees on, whether they are, things like are quite happy to have people from, other, areas applying for funding in the area. We can identify what will need to stay and go and move around, so we can do that adjustment, and then we'll send that around just so everyone's seen it before it goes out.
Yeah,
we'll just need to move a little bit depending on where, because it may end up that depending on what criteria, all 3 groups, there is a potential that if someone's got quite different criteria, that their form needs to be quite different. So we just need to let those decisions play out.
Okay, because it was just around that first tick bucket thing. Do we need to see that? Because we've removed the, you can't receive funds from any other WIPA funding round. So is it still relevant to know who they're applying to, or is that just an office administration thing because you had the one fund, the one form for all 3 funds?
I think the one at the top, probably because people could apply for, across the different boards.
Right.
And I think we're talking about in there removing that as a kind of criteria, but depending on, we'll need to kind of look at where things land, depending on where the groups might land on whether they want to be just looking. And that's one thing you just need to think about, are you wanting to limit it to funding groups or clubs or organisations that have a base in Cambridge or Rangitoto?
Yeah, I think that's what we decided at our workshop, wasn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's not in the current resolution. So
we'd probably need to add that one in, because that was one of our firms, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, let's add that one to it. What do you guys think about funding rounds? I'm happy with the one. I can
Yeah.
see the value in that. I mean, there's less money. It makes sense to do maybe just one. And just make sure that that's really clearly communicated to some of those groups that, you know.
I'm
apply.
either. I quite enjoy learning about lots of community organisations, and the more opportunity that's good for me. So 2, I'm happy with that. But if others decide 1, I'll support that too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, so let's go with one funding round. Philip, did you have any comments on 1 or 2 funding rounds? 1, okay. Right. Okay. Just go. I think 1. Just
Yeah.
1 and done.
Yeah. So just in terms of changes so far to the resolution, in terms of what you've got sitting in your report, in terms of recommendation B, everything is the same apart from a new 4, where there are the words any other criteria, and added into there is only funding groups, clubs or organisations that have a base in Cambridge or Mangatōtari can apply. So that's an addition to B based on what we've just talked about. And then C simply becomes agrees to hold a funding round for distribution of discretionary grant funding in the 2024/2025 financial year.
Do you think it should say 1 instead of A?
Yeah. 1 funding round.
I think that makes it very clear so people don't get confused that they've got multiple chances. Okay. Are you, Elise and Andrew, happy with that?
Happy to move
Yep.
that, Madam Chair.
Okay, all right.
I'm happy to second.
Okay, Mike's going to second. Great. Yes, all in favour of that? Yes, Philip, Andrew, great. Elise, awesome. Okay, thank you, everyone. Right, now, do you need a few moments or are you okay to? You're good? Okay. No, no, no. Okay, Treasury report. Let's come back to you again for that.
So Treasury report is included in your agenda for the period ending 31st of July. So you have a balance of $33,338.84 in uncommitted. And Yep. Oh, no, does it, any questions on the Treasury report?
No, I think that's fine. Thank you. Right, board members' reports from meetings attended on behalf of the Cambridge Community Board. Andrew? Oh, sorry, we didn't move that report. I apologise. I'll move it and Mike will second. Thank you. All in favour? Sorry about that, team. Okay, Andrew.
Last week, I think I went to the Cambridge Property Owners Group. They had a special meeting, their bi-monthly meeting, I think it was, about parking. Joe wasn't unable to make it, so I went along, and led by Phil Mackay from Power Architects, and there were in attendance maybe 15 to 20 property owners, commercial property owners in Cambridge, talking about parking. They were, was there enough parking? If there was to be more, how should be paid for? Special rates or targeted rates or general rates, ideas for more parking, concerns about parking. I thought I sent you the minutes show there. you know, it's the usual sort of, because there were no other council people there. They started to go down the rabbit hole of against council, but I think, you know, I was there and I said that you've got to be more constructive and positive about it, and they came round. Bring up the notes because there was quite a lot discussed. Said, Wilson Street's quite a big one. They said quite 47 car parks lost on Wilson Street. You know, population's going up. Businesses are hurting. They're just trying to be in a position where more people can come park in town. That's what would support commercial property owners. So they can't understand why parks are being removed and are not added in other places to make up for it. They understanding of the fact that if the customers parking by their shop is going to support their business, that they therefore could pay for that through a targeted rate. That there were generally some support around that concept. There was support around metering of parking to restrict hours so that the shoppers were the main people that were using the centralised parks. They wanted perhaps to see that ways staff could be incentivised to park outside to the fringe of the CBD. There was some discussion about alternative modes, but not really. Really, it was sticking to the cars. They said out of interest that a lot of people, bike lanes are being put in and things for bikes, but there's nowhere to park your bike and lock it up in town. So it's great that they could ride their bike and get there and back, but there's no actually secure bike storage, and bikes are going up. You know, EV bikes are 5 to 10 grand, perhaps with expensive ones. So people can't secure them. They might use the bike lane, but they won't park it in town. There was talk about the population aging. Is there allowance for this and the allocation of accessible parking? There's frustration, particular property owners, besides the warehouse and the library here, that they see people from the council vehicles parking in sort of the library car parks, and then underneath the warehouse, they believe perhaps they are warehouse shoppers car parks, and there's council vehicles in there taking space. And, you know, these are commercial people looking for their rights for shoppers to park in shoppers' spaces, so they get there's sort of a frustration with council on those sorts of aspects, which probably need clarifying for them more about what these people are doing in their cars and why they're parking under the warehouse. And, you know, managed to steer around it. There was a new CEO coming to the Waipa District Council, and that they could formulate an action plan and draw the communication together to approach for a meeting with, you know, if there's a new strategy or just meet a new person that might have a new breath of fresh air for their interests. So that's what their kind of outcome was, and that's what they're going to do. So I thought that was good. And they meet, as I said, I think it was bi-monthly. So I'm sure if you ask, you can go along to the next one of those to find out more. The Safer Cambridge Trust had a meeting 2 weeks ago. What was the outcome there? I mean, we had a new sergeant, Philip, that came from the police. There's a new sergeant in town. He's actually lived in Cambridge for quite a while, so that was deemed as really positive for. Yep. So he came and presented to the group. There was talk about the allocation of the funding from the council. Now that seems to come up every time that ComSafe and Te Awamutu perhaps receives circa, I think it's 40 grand, and Safer Cambridge gets circa 20 grand. So, you know, it comes up every time. There's discussion about their community patrol, which goes around, and they're looking mainly at sort of homelessness that's on the rise. It's a bit harder in winter for people sleeping in their cars. It's a lot colder. There's no real solutions for that. It's a complex issue. That comes up all the time is the gates at the cemeteries are, you know, council contract to be locked every night. Probably 50% of the time they're unlocked, it appears, on the community patrol.
Yeah, just on that, I did ask Brad with his report yesterday because there was some reports from some community meetings that I've been to recently that there had been further cemetery vandalism, but I hadn't really heard of anything in that. And I questioned Brad, and hasn't been anything further for some time, which is great. I mean, having cemeteries, having any vandalism is really just poor, but cemeteries is that's just the low. Yeah, there hadn't been. So
And I did email Brad to ask about the progress on the automated gates there through the LTP, and that gave a good response there. So I'll feed that back to the trust, and they should be, happy to be updated. Rurally, and spring is, it's just in general busy time of year for people in the primary industries. So that's heads down, bums up, working to for the business end of part of the season. I've noticed a lot, the inflation's high and things. I've seen receivership sales for agricultural contractors. I've noticed too in the Waikato. So I haven't really seen that before. So it's obviously a bit of pressure on businesses and out there, and they're selling up. So that's interesting. Okay, that's all. Thank you.
Elise, we'll just come through to you.
Yeah, just attended the PCG group for our Cambridge Community Boards 2.0 with Joe last week, which was good just to continue to, I guess we came to the conclusion just to bed in the changes that we've made so far and continue to work constructively alongside council. So yeah.
Yeah, that was a good meeting. Yeah. Philip?
Yeah, we had the citizens ceremony a couple of weeks ago, and there's 111 new residents to Waipa, which is phenomenal. That's the biggest number. So they're just a really happy event. So the next one's in November. They're quarterly. There's a careers event at the town hall for students, from all around the Waikato. And talking with some of the exhibitors there, they got the best interaction from TA College and Pataria College. So that was really good. There was the health forum today over in Te Awamutu Library. I'm not sure if the community board were invited to that. The last one was a couple of years ago, but they're going to try and make them a lot more regular than that. Money and people and things, there's a real big shortage, but that's nothing new. So, but they are a good event. And then I think the community board asked about the having welcome back for the Olympians. And I followed that up last week, and it looks like it may be November, but there was an email that came from Susan today. And she's asked the events team to lead that and bring it forward to lead it, and that time has yet to be set, but it may be towards November and things like that. So just watch the space on that. So yeah.
Thank you, Mike.
Cool. Just respond to 2 points in Andrew's commentary. The Cambridge Connections pathway forward, that is the report that got tabled the other day, that actually includes a recommendation to pursue a parking strategy for Cambridge. Okay, so that's sitting there, and it was something I was really pleased to see, and I know the chamber are. So that was that. Second, the Safer Community Trust, they did a really excellent presentation to the enhanced annual plan, and they were a really hard one to turn down for me. So while I was sitting there thinking, we were in such a tight financial position that we didn't want to give away anything, but it might be one that's worth considering, the community board considering, because if the community board got behind it, it'd probably get it across the line, because it is really hard to see why they get less than ComSafe over in Te Awamutu. It's been a bone of contention for them forever. So just because it'll come up again in the long-term plan, they only want another 20 grand. If you guys want it to happen, you might be able to give them a bit of a help. Okay, so done my usual thing, just gone backwards through the last month's worth of meetings. A lot of it so I'm just going to pick out a few that just to highlight for you. Yesterday in service delivery, the Cook Street roundabout, Shakespeare Street roundabout, post-construction safety assessment was presented. There was a pretty good discussion on it. quite a good Q&A with Brian. If you haven't seen it, I suggest you look at it. It's so topical around the place, and it's an easy read report. Okay, so that's a good one to look at. We had a council meeting on Monday, which is where Plan Change 26. That's the intensification one came in, and we accepted, in line with previous workshops, the bits we accepted. The other bits have gone off to the minister. I think the bits that got accepted are operative already. Okay, so that means we've got a plan change as of then. The other decision points that we rejected off to the minister. So I won't go into the detail here. It's mind-numbingly complicated, but that's mostly live. The few bits we rejected gone to the minister, and its turnaround's quite quick. Okay, so just have that in your mind that that's done. Only other thing I wanted to highlight is Waikato Water done well. So you're all aware of the 3 waters that the previous government tried to implement, and it's now all been repealed. So that was sort of the compulsory aggregation of our water entities. So now the voluntary version is progressing. This is being led by the Mayor's Forum, the Waikato Mineral Forum, in conjunction with CoLab, who are this organisation who do work for all the joint councils. And there is quite a body of kind of evidence and weight of opinion that we do need to do some sort of aggregation. Okay, it's a really topical issue because you saw the heat it generated last time politically. So it'll be something that you guys, Cambridge Community Board, will sort of have to get familiar with over time. It's in its fairly early phases at the moment. We'll keep you posted, but yeah, it's tracking along. Okay, and my sense is that something will happen. Okay, because of the debt pressure on all the growth councils, the fact we're all running out of debt headroom, and just the 10-year forecast of the amount of work that has to be done and the availability of contractors and funding. It's all kind of crushing. So we'll keep you posted on that. That's me. Okay, any questions?
Any questions for Mike before I go back to Philip? Philip?
Question, but one other.
Oh, just sorry.
Not a question, but one other item which has to be noted, or it's a new, we've got our new CE starting on Monday, and there's an event pro for at 11 o'clock. I'm sure you've been. Sorry. Yep. So that's gonna be cool.
Mike, could you just, the parking strategy part of the Cambridge Connections, when it's just the timeline, I'll just feedback information to that group. What would I say to them?
Same answer as I gave to the progression of Cambridge Connections. There is no timeline, but it was there, okay, which was interesting. So that was a staff recommendation. It's there. Everyone's been calling for it. I was really pleased to see it there. It'll be part of the reset in my mind, okay?
Right, thank you. Yes, attended the PCG with Elise, which is always good. It's always good to connect on some of those actions that we've agreed to do and go forward, and we're all ticking along very nicely there, which is great. I've had my usual catch-ups with Kelly from the Chamber of Commerce and also with Corinne from the community liaison perspective, which is always really good. And yes, attended the Career Expo with Susan as well, which was really good. And also we are kicking off our armistice work now in preparation for November. So that's another piece of work that's going on in the background. But apart from that, I think that's me. Right. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Right. Date of our next meeting is the 6 p.m. It's going to be on a Thursday this time. The 12th of September, Thursday, the 12th of September. Right, and I will just.
So on that, I'm going to be in Beijing. So could I have my apologies, because in Beijing I can't Zoom, can't Zoom, Facebook, Google, anything like that. So
just call us.
I'm sorry.
No, that's
if it was
okay.
the next day, I'm leaving on the 13th, but well, no, I'll be going to Shanghai actually. And then we're going to Japan on the 15th.
Thank you. No, that's all good.
And I'll be
We'll
online again.
note that. We will note that. Great. Thank you. Okay, right. Our closing karakia. Tipo hihiri, tipo rarama, tipo o ti whakaro, tipo o ti tangata, tipo o ti aroha, ko ine nā po. I here nei I a tātou. Mauri ora ki a tātou,